Marcus Chen leaned back in his ergonomic chair, the blue glow of multiple monitors casting shadows across his tired face as he scrolled through the overnight system logs of Northfield Medical Center's server network. It was 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, and he had been the sole night shift IT administrator for 3 years now, long enough that the endless streams of automated backups and routine notifications had become digital white noise. His coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but then something in the log caught his eye, a single entry that made his finger pause on the mouse wheel. At exactly 12 o'clock a.m., a new file had been uploaded to the hospital's secure patient data server. Breathing, WAV, 47.3 megabytes, uploaded from an internal terminal on the 4th floor. The 4th floor had been closed for renovation for 6 months. Marcus sat up straighter, his fatigue evaporating as he double-clicked. The log entry. The terminal ID was for F Nurses 03, one of the old workstations supposedly disconnected from the network. He checked the building's keycard access logs for the 4th floor, nothing. No entries since the construction crew had left Friday afternoon. His rational mind offered explanations. Maybe a construction worker had reconnected. A computer, maybe it was some automated system he'd forgotten about. But 47 megabytes was enormous for an audio file. And that file name, Breathing, WAV, sent a cold thread of unease down his spine. Marcus opened the remote access protocol and navigated to the file's location, his cursor hovering over it before he checked the properties. Created at midnight exactly, no user attribution, no associated program. Hospital policy dictated that he should report any anomalous uploads immediately, but curiosity gnawed at him. He glanced at the office door, still closed, then created an isolated sandbox environment and copied the file over. The progress bar filled slowly, too slowly for that file size, and as it reached 100%, Marcus noticed. His hands had gone cold. The file sat on his desktop like a dark secret. Marcus pulled his headphones on, turned the volume down to a cautious level, and double-clicked. For 3 seconds, there was silence. Then he heard it, a slow, deliberate breath in and then out. It was close, intimate, as if someone were breathing directly against a microphone, and the sound quality was so crisp he could hear the slight wetness of a tongue against teeth. Another breath, and another, perfectly rhythmic, neither rushed nor relaxed, but somehow mechanical in their precision. Marcus felt his own breathing synchronize, involuntarily, and he forced himself to break the rhythm, his heart rate picking up. He dragged the playback bar forward. The file was over 6 hours long. At the 2-hour mark, the breathing continued unchanged. At 4 hours, the same. But at 5 hours, 47 minutes and 23 seconds, something different. The breathing hitched, caught, and there was a wet swallowing sound. Then the rhythm resumed, but now there was something underneath it, barely audible. Marcus boosted the audio levels and isolated the lower frequencies, and felt his stomach drop. Underneath the breathing were voices, whispering words he couldn't quite make out, like a crowd murmuring in a distant room. He ripped the headphones off, his breath coming faster than he intended. The office suddenly felt smaller, the shadows deeper. Marcus told himself it was just an audio file, probably some prank uploaded to the wrong server. But his hands shook as he navigated to the hospital's security camera archives, entering the parameters for the 4th floor. Grainy black and white footage filled his screen, showing the abandoned nurses' station and darkened corridors. He jumped to 11:55 p.m. and watched, his eyes flicking between the different feeds. At exactly midnight, the screen flickered just for a frame, and when it stabilized, the camera covering the nurses' station showed something that made Marcus's breath catch. One of the computer monitors at the station was on, glowing blue in the darkness, though it had been off a second before. He rewound and watched again. Off, flicker, on. No one had entered the frame, no movement at all, but the computer was active. He fast-forwarded, watching the timestamp climb, and at 12:47, the monitor went dark again, the same way it had appeared. Marcus grabbed his phone and called security. Duke, the night guard, answered. On the 3rd ring, Marcus explained what he'd found, trying to keep his voice steady, but Duke just sighed. That 4th floor's been weird since they started renovations. Cameras glitch all the time up there. You want me to go check it out? Marcus almost said, yes, then imagined Duke walking those dark corridors alone. No, wait until Sarah gets here. I'm coming with you. Just keep an eye on the camera feeds for that floor. The next 20 minutes stretched like hours. Marcus tried to focus on routine tasks, but his eyes kept drifting to the breathing WAV file on his desktop and to the security feed in the corner of his monitor. The fourth floor remained still and empty, but now he noticed things he'd missed before. Shadows darker than they should be, a plastic tarp that occasionally fluttered though the floor was sealed off. At 7:12 a.m., the IT office door opened and Sarah stepped in, and the wave of relief Marcus felt was almost embarrassing. Sarah's smile faded when she saw his face. "Jesus, Marcus, you look like you've seen a ghost." He told her everything, watching her expression shift from amusement to concern as he showed her the log entry, the file, the security footage. She listened to 30 seconds of the breathing through his headphones before pulling them off, her face pale. "That's really unsettling. Have you reported it?" Marcus shook his head. "I wanted to check the physical location first. Duke's going to meet us on the fourth floor." Sarah bit her lip, then nodded. "Okay, but I'm forwarding this to my personal email first. This is too weird not to document." The elevator ride to the fourth floor felt like descending into deep water. Duke was waiting when the doors opened, his flashlight already out. "Place gives me the creeps," Duke admitted. "Construction guys say they hear things, sometimes footsteps, doors closing, but old buildings settle, you know." The nurses' station was at the end of the main corridor, and as they walked, Marcus became acutely aware of how their footsteps echoed, how the sound seemed to travel too far into the darkness. The computer at station for F Nurses 03 sat exactly where the security footage had shown it, its monitor dark, construction dust on the keyboard. Marcus pulled latex gloves from his pocket and pressed the power button. Nothing happened. He checked the power cable, traced it to the wall outlet, and found the breaker for this section had been thrown, cutting all power to the nurses' station. "That's impossible," he said quietly. Sarah leaned in. "What is?" Marcus pointed to the outlet, then to the computer. "This terminal had no power last night. It couldn't have been used." Duke shifted uncomfortably. "Maybe your log's wrong?" But Marcus was already photographing everything. The powered-down terminal, the throne breaker, the undisturbed dust. Sarah had moved to another computer. "Marcus, come look at this." He joined her, and she pointed to the monitor. In the dust on the screen, someone had traced words. "I'm still here." The letters were shaky, uneven, and recent. Duke's flashlight beam trembled. "Okay, that's someone's messing with us, right?" But his voice lacked conviction, and when a sound echoed from deeper in the fourth floor, a long, slow creak like a door opening, all three of them froze. "We should go," Sarah whispered, but Marcus was staring at the terminal again. He pulled out his phone and checked the hospital's patient database, searching for records from before the renovation. The floor had been the oncology ward, and one name appeared repeatedly: patient for F47, a man named Robert Weiss, who had spent 7 months in room for F12 before dying of respiratory failure. The room number made Marcus's blood run cold for F12, and the breathing WAV file had been exactly 47.3 megabytes. He showed Sarah, and she looked at him like he was connecting dots that shouldn't be connected. "That's coincidence, Marcus." But he was already moving, walking toward room for F12, ignoring their protests. The door was closed, marked scheduled for demolition. Marcus pushed it open, and the smell hit him first, something medicinal and sterile, at odds with the construction dust everywhere else. The room had been stripped, but on the floor where a bed would have been, someone had arranged pieces of old medical equipment: a broken oxygen mask, lengths of tubing, a disconnected patient monitor. They formed a human figure, lying down, positioned exactly where a patient would have been. Sarah had followed him in. "What the hell is this? Some kind of memorial?" But Marcus was focused on the patient monitor, because even though it wasn't plugged in, even though it was clearly broken with a cracked screen and severed power cable, the screen was glowing faintly, showing a single line of text: "Midnight upload complete." Duke had reached the doorway, took one look, and backed away. "No, we need to call the police. We need to." The lights went out. Not just in the room, but everywhere, the emergency corridor lighting dying with an electric buzz, plunging them into darkness except for their phone flashlights. And in that darkness, from somewhere close to close, came the sound of breathing. Deep, wet, labored breathing that rattles in fluid-filled lungs, and it was growing louder. Sarah grabbed Marcus's arm, and Duke was shouting about getting to the stairs, but Marcus stood transfixed because the broken patient monitor's glow was getting brighter, and on its cracked screen, words formed one letter at a time: You listened to me. Now I can listen to you. Marcus's phone chimed, and he looked down to see a notification. Breathing, WAV had just been uploaded to his personal cloud storage. Then Sarah's phone chimed, then Duke's. The breathing sound intensified, coming from everywhere at once, from down the corridor, from the corners, from inside his own pocket where his phone's speaker had activated, playing back that horrible rhythmic inhale-exhale at increasing volume. They ran then, stumbling through the pitch-black corridor toward the elevator, phones held out like talismans, and behind them the breathing followed, keeping pace. The elevator wouldn't come. Marcus hammered the button while Duke had already found the stairwell, holding the door open and screaming at them to move. They crashed through, and the door slammed behind them with a boom that echoed down. For a moment there was silence, and then Sarah's voice, "The door. Look at the door." Marcus turned his phone light to the small window in the stairwell door. Standing directly in front of the window was a figure, backlit by a light that shouldn't exist, and even through the glass he could see it wasn't quite right, too tall, too thin. Proportions wrong in ways that hurt to look at. It raised one hand and pressed it against the glass, and Marcus saw that the fingers were too long, joints bending into many places, and as they watched in frozen horror, the figure's chest expanded in a massive inhale, held for 5 seconds, and released. They heard it through the door, felt it in their bones, that same breath from the recording, and underneath it, whispered voices forming words. "Stay, listen, breathe with me, forever." Duke yanked Marcus away and they descended 3 steps at a time, not stopping until they'd crashed through the ground floor exit into the bright fluorescent safety of the main hospital corridor. Marcus bent double, lungs burning, and realized with creeping dread that his breathing had synchronized again with the rhythm from the recording. That he couldn't break the pattern no matter how hard he tried. 3 weeks later, Marcus sat across from Dr. Helen Reeves, the hospital psychiatrist, in her comfortable office. She listened patiently as he recounted the events again and made notes on her tablet. "And you're still experiencing the intrusive breathing pattern?" Marcus nodded, demonstrated the involuntary rhythm that now governed his respiration, that woke him at exactly midnight every night with the feeling that someone was breathing in sync with him in his dark bedroom. "Your stress levels are dangerously high. Have you considered taking the medical leave we discussed?" Marcus had stopped trying to make people believe the truth, that the breathing WAV file had spread through the hospital's network before IT could contain it, that 17 staff members had now reported downloading it involuntarily, that all of them woke at midnight with the same sensation of a presence in their rooms. The official investigation had found no evidence of an intruder, no explanation for the arranged medical equipment, no record of the messages because Marcus's photos had corrupted mysteriously. Sarah had resigned and moved to another state. Duke had transferred to a different hospital, but Marcus couldn't leave because the breathing wasn't trying to scare him anymore. It was trying to synchronize with him, to match his pattern, to become indistinguishable from his own autonomic rhythm, and every night at midnight he felt it getting closer to perfect alignment. That night, Marcus sat in his apartment with all the lights on, watching the clock on his laptop tick toward midnight, the breathing WAV file open on his screen. He'd stopped being able to delete it after the first week. At 11:59, his breathing began to match the pattern without his conscious control. At 12 o'clock, the file began playing from his speakers, though he hadn't touched the mouse. And this time there was something new underneath the breathing, a voice he recognized from patient records. Robert Weiss, speaking in a wet whisper. 7 months I called for help. 7 months listening to my own breathing through that oxygen mask. 7 months of midnight terror when I couldn't catch my breath and no one came. Now everyone listens. Now everyone knows how it feels. And you, Marcus, you listened first. You listened longest. The breathing intensified, and Marcus felt his own lungs moving in perfect synchronization, felt something cold sliding into his chest and settling there, and realized with absolute certainty that he would never breathe alone again. The system logs at Northfield Medical Center continued recording everything, indifferent and precise. And on the first day of the following month, a new entry appeared, breathing 2, WAV, uploaded at midnight from Terminal 1 BIT Admin 01. Marcus Chen's own workstation, 94.6 megabytes, exactly double the original file size, containing 2 sets of lungs breathing in perfect harmony, and underneath their rhythm, voices whispering. To anyone who would listen, growing with each new upload, patient and persistent and eternal.